It is a September Eve. We are nestled in the safety of the walls of our apartment. And we are AJ.
And Kaylee.
Your clandestine Avatar The Last Airbender podcasters. And thank you for joining us for another episode.
For those of you who are joining us for the first time, our deal is Avatar is my favorite show. I've seen it a bunch of times.
And honestly, I don't know an Avatar from an Avatar by James Cameron. I didn't grow up with the series, but now we're married, and now I'm watching the series, and I gotta say, I'm impressed. You know, I thought this was just kid stuff, but here we are.
I really love that clear through line. Now we're married, and I'm watching Avatar The Last Airbender.
And I'm watching Avatar The Last Airbender. Kaylee, I don't know what it was about what was that, episode 4?
The
Where
swamp.
they're in the swamp. I couldn't think of a dang thing to say about it.
It's an interesting episode, which is why, y'all.
I mean, we sat here and tried like 3 times.
It's probably the only episode that you have watched that many times.
It's not that it was bad. It's just that, like, I literally couldn't think of anything to say about it.
It kind of lobs some interesting philosophy at you. But here's the deal.
Yeah.
I have been anxious to get to episode 6, The Blind Bandit. So I found it a little bit hard to talk about most of these episodes in book 2, to be honest with you, because I'm just waiting. But
The Blind Bandit?
Yes. That's why we've decided to talk about 2 episodes this time. The swamp took us forever to get through, so
Forever.
we went ahead and sat down today, and after watching the swamp 3 or 4 times, we also watched Avatar Day. And we're going to talk about both of them.
We just decided, A, we'd give you a 2-for-1 episode. B, that was boring and I couldn't think of anything. I mean, it wasn't boring. See, that's what's so weird about it. It's not like if it was a bad episode, I'd have a lot to say about it. But
I
think
think
it was just, yep, that's fine. That moved the plot along.
it makes sense to me. It did move the plot along, but I think in ways that you can't necessarily predict or draw from it yet. So I'm going to guide us through some of the important stuff.
Hold on, we're getting guided.
Because, I've seen it a few times.
Okay, guide us.
So, the swamp. Of course, if you all have seen the show, which I am sure most of our audience has, they're pulled down into the swamp mysteriously. We're flying over the Earth Nation, and suddenly, Aang feels called.
Feels called to land.
Exactly.
In the swamp.
Yes.
The swampy swamp.
And then, even though Team Avatar decides, no, it's murky and scary, they get torn down and separated in the swamp by a tornado anyways. So, do you remember what happens initially when Team Avatar gets separated from one another in the swamp?
No, I don't.
So, okay, we'll talk about first the visions.
The visions?
Yes. So, Sokka, Katara, Aang are separated, and then Momo and Appa get separated on their own too and have their own adventure with the swamp people. But the visions are, I think, important. They match, if you remember, the previously on Avatar of this episode. We get a flashback to none other than Princess Yue, which, by the way, last episode I think we talked about me wanting to get a new tattoo. And
You gonna get a UA tattoo?
I got the UA tattoo.
And what's really embarrassing about this UA tattoo that Kaylee's not sharing with the audience is that she didn't tell the artist how it was spelled. So now it looks like Kaylee is a big Under Armour fan.
It's a really good joke.
Thanks.
Off the cuff, too.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't put UA's name on my arm. Nope.
Well, what does it look like?
If anyone has seen that one shot in the episode when they're in the Northern Water Tribe and she shows her necklace, it's like things orbiting a moon. That's what I got.
Nice.
Because I'm a Cancer.
Nice.
But anyway, back to the episode. So, in the swamp, Sokka...
Are you going to upload a picture of the UA tattoo?
I already did.
Atla, so you can see what this UA tattoo looks like on our Instagram.
I hope you like it. If you don't, please give me hate in the comments.
You're gonna ask the internet specifically to give you hate?
It's are you familiar with sarcasm? So Sokka has a vision of Yue. Katara has a vision of her mother.
And Momo has a vision of a screaming eaglet.
No, that's a real thing that happened.
Oh, that's a real thing? That wasn't just a delusion?
No.
Oh.
The swamp is full of all kinds of creatures. And Aang has a vision of... Do you remember?
No.
Trick question. Someone that we do not know.
That's why I don't remember it.
Exactly. So what's important about each of these is, I think, not necessarily the person that is represented in the visions, but how it affects the characters. So Katara is obviously dealing with grief and loss and fear. She sees her mother, who has been gone for a long time, and is devastated by it, right? The grief kind of washes over her. Sokka, on the other hand, sees Yue, who is saying weird things to him, like, you didn't protect me. And we didn't know Yue very long, but the last time, when she became the moon spirit, she was like, Sokka, I'll always be with you. There was clearly, love and good vibes. So I think this is Sokka's fear sort of reflected back at him, that he didn't do enough.
Sokka's fear of what? What do you mean?
Of not being able to protect the people he loves.
Which is crazy considering what happens in the next episode, but it seems more like a premonition, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And then Aang, if you remember, we don't know who this person is, but there seems to be a little girl who is giggling and running through the woods, and Aang chases after her but can't keep up with her. So
everybody else is like more or less, like the question in their minds is not necessarily what do these visions mean, because they already know what they mean. It's just Aang who's left wondering, like, okay, so who is this person? 'Cause he doesn't even know who that is.
Right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
the visions are important. Another thing that I think you'll enjoy talking about.
Okay.
Where are Iroh and Zuko?
They're street urchins. They're street rats.
Exactly.
They're begging.
Begging and Iroh completely humbling himself and even performing for rude people on the street for just a little bit of gold.
I mean, I know the feeling. I've done that before.
Been a street performer?
I mean, if you could call it that, it was a suburban mall.
Well, that's basically where they were, right?
Yeah, in a way. Did they have a Dillard's?
We'll have to check out the signage.
Did they have a crumble cookie?
If you really want to watch that episode again, we'll go back. So yeah, I think the important thing there is Iroh is doing okay with this refugee life.
He's probably done it before.
It's likely that he's done it before, but Zuko certainly has not.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that having to lower himself from what he's used to as a prince, people answering his beck and call and doing what he says, and him having food whenever he wants it, running his own ship. He does not like seeing what he sees as his uncle degrading himself on the street for pennies.
And Iroh is just doing what he feels they have to do.
Exactly. Iroh is playing it safe. Zuko has no idea what he's doing, but he's struggling with in his typical angsty way. He is struggling with knowing how to behave in this environment.
He's always angsty. Is there ever an environment where he's not struggling, where he's not just like being goth?
I feel like the answer to that is no, but we'll have to wait and see. So, for some reason, we get that flash at the very beginning of Iroh and Zuko, and then we don't see them for almost the entire episode. I think maybe the entire episode.
Yeah.
So we're in the swamp. We get separated.
Mm-hmm.
Team Avatar has visions. And then they encounter the swamp monster.
The linguini monster. The linguini al pesto monster.
The algae, mossy swamp creature.
Ah!
Which is cool. I like your question earlier about if they need like mud in the environment to be able to bend this way. These are the first water benders that we've seen outside of the North Pole or the South Pole.
And there was just, I mean, there's some water, but there's like a lot of ice. That has nothing to do with anything. I'm just being really observant.
No, it really does have a lot to do with it, though. Because what do you notice about the way these water benders bend versus Katara?
Illuminate me. I don't know what you're getting at.
So if you've watched her up to this point, Katara's big on state changing. So she can use her water whip, which is the typical weapon she goes to. Mm-hmm. And she frequently moves her whip in and out of liquid and ice form. So ice state change has, I think, a lot to do with the environment she was in and the people who taught her how to waterbend.
I see. So now we're in this basically a swamp forest thing. There's one big tree in the middle that's basically got its little roots on all of the water here, and so there's this central tree mythology that pops up in the swamp.
Yeah, it's that everything is connected, but that makes the swamp waterbenders have an elemental affinity that they have learned. The place they live is all interconnected, so they literally bend the water in the plants around them. They don't bend the plants, but the water that exists in everything.
So they're salad benders.
Yeah. Bet those crunchy bugs
little
go
watercress salad, little Thousand Island dressing.
Did you just say watercress? I can tell you've been playing Pokemon.
Perhaps. We've been playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The DLC
Teal Mask
rules. It is pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Like every Pokemon fan, I'm just gonna say like, oh yeah, you know, I've put like 100 hours into it so far. It's okay. It's fine.
I keep purposely...
Nothing like gold and silver.
Nothing like gold and silver. But there are a lot of Johto Pokemon. What is our podcast about?
No. Hold on. Wait, it'll come to me. If you can hear that water rushing in the background, that's our dishwasher going off. Our cats have not just become waterbenders. I think.
I'm in a constant state of identity crisis these days. I've
What?
always thought
Unpack
I was an
that.
earthbender.
Okay.
But I have labored over deciding what kind of tattoo Avatar related that I wanted, and ultimately I went with a waterbender, the princess of the Northern Water Tribe who turns into the moon. So I feel like I was subconsciously admitting that maybe I'm a waterbender.
Right. It's not like you got I don't know.
It's not like I have actual powers. Does it matter?
I mean, but it matters who you associate with. Who you attach those powers to.
Man, and the struggle will continue.
Yeah.
I'm divergent. You'll see when we get to the Blind Bandit. But
I think we're both divergent.
I think so. Like, what?
Anyway. I have here in my notes something about how the tree makes everything connected and how Aang going to the dude who like hangs out at the roots of the tree just because like he thinks that that's the place to be, how that is somehow significant. But it's been a little bit since we watched the episode, so tell us how that's significant. Because they go to the tree, they meet the guy in the tree. He says everything is connected. He tries to bring Aang to like a level of enlightenment that he feels like is necessary to like graduating from the swamp.
Okay, so this is the part I really wanted to talk about. It took us a few times watching it to get here. But you are how old?
How old am I?
Sorry to out you.
No. Hold on. I just got to do a little bit of math. 33.
So you saw this episode for the first time at 33 years old.
Uh-huh.
Imagine 11-year-old me hearing someone talk about for the first time how everything in the world is connected. For me, that's how this episode hits.
And for me, since I'm a little bit more of an aging millennial, I had already seen Fern Gully. Okay? Yeah, I saw Fern Gully. I watched in amazement. Fern Gully. No, okay, hold on. This is all reading weird. Yes, it is. It is a cool, nice thought that the tree brings. That all life on Earth is connected.
Yes.
It's cute.
So this guy they meet is the protector of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
He explains to Aang that even though you can't see it outright, it's all connected. That tree is actually the whole forest. And somehow this revelation allows Aang to feel that connection on a deeper spiritual level. And that's how he
needs a visual metaphor.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The reincarnated spirit of the Avatar is good with metaphor. So, he touches the roots. You see a little energy trail follow all the way to where Appa and Momo are in some danger.
They need some saving, and quick.
And quick. It's those dang swamp benders.
The swamp benders are not thinking of Appa and
Momo.
Limu, Mimu, Momo.
Momo.
They're not thinking of Appa and Momo as their kin. They're thinking of them as their lunch.
Be a nice change from possum chicken.
Yeah. What? How do you get any better than possum chicken? It sounds delicious. The more I think about it, the more I crave it. It's gamey. It's possumy.
But
with a smack of chicken.
with the go-to reliable taste of chicken.
That's right.
So, yeah, the swamp benders, they want to have a nice meal, but thanks to the protector of the swamp, who somehow explains to Aang how he can find Appa just like that.
Just like that. Like clockwork.
They arrive to the rescue of their trusty steeds and realize they may be kin. Sokka and Katara see waterbenders that are different than any kind of waterbenders they've ever known before.
Okay.
And
so, like, they're not alone.
Right. That water nation people exist outside of the North and South Pole, obviously in smaller tribes and groups.
Who don't talk to each other.
They have, they don't have cell phones. They can't just call each other up. But it turns out that there are more waterbenders in the world than just the North and South Pole, which is extremely significant. We're in the Earth Nation. We didn't know that there were other waterbenders. But Sokka and Katara must have known there were waterbenders other places.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you think about the fact that Aang really is the only airbender.
Oh, yeah.
So even though we've seen the Fire Nation is taking over, we're starting to see how big and vast the Earth Nation is.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we knew a lot about the Water Nation.
So now Sokka and Katara, they're part of this like club of loners, right? And they see Aang, and he's like the ultimate loner. alone in his waterbending capabilities. Will this revelation affect how they treat Aang at all? Do you think they'll have any, or are they just unwavering?
I don't know that it's necessarily a character change. Okay. I want you to pay attention to, other than think about, you've seen a completely different type of waterbending, but it's probably something that Katara could learn to do. She could continue to learn new ways of waterbending. So can Aang. But what's different about her experience, an earthbender's experience, a firebender's experience, is that Aang is the only airbender. He is the entire representation of what that nation, what that element is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I will pay attention to that.
And roast some giant flies and possum chicken while you're at it.
Do I have to, like, right now?
No, but I think...
I have one last question.
Sure.
Before we move on to the next episode.
Go for it.
The blue mask guy. He's at the end of the episode.
Yes, what about the blue mask guy?
What about him? Is he a waterbender? Blue means water, typically.
Did you see him waterbend? Them?
If I did, I can't remember.
I don't know if it's a him. Them?
Oh, right. Him or her or them or... I don't know. I don't remember if I ever saw them waterbend. Did you?
Sure didn't. Did you see them do any type of bending?
I don't remember. Maybe there was like some fire bending in season 1. Is that right?
Well...
Or am I wrong?
I'm glad that you noticed the person in the blue mask. I'm not going to tell you anything about them.
Okay.
But I'm happy to know that you're thinking about them.
It's Sokka in disguise. I don't know.
So, are you ready to move on to Avatar Day?
Happy Avatar Day.
This episode is silly on so many levels. It reminds me of the Canyon episode, where it's just like, really, what are these shenanigans? It's one of those filler episodes.
I mean, you say filler. I say judicial process drama. I say this is rife with I mean, judicial. It's rich in process. There's intrigue. There's friends made in jail. There's the long arm of the law, which is very silly. I love that voice actor.
He is the same, I don't know his name, I should have looked it up, but it's the same voice actor that plays the messenger in Mulan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering where I had heard him. He's like,
yes.
the Fa family.
yes, that's exactly what his voice is.
Okay.
I knew I recognized it when it was a kid, but when I started rewatching it, before it was on Netflix, when AJ here ordered me the DVD sets.
All episodes on digital video disc.
And 3:4 aspect ratio.
That's right.
4:3.
4:3. It's 4:3.
It's not.
Kaylee.
It's not portrait. Okay.
The
anyway.
cinemaphiles on this podcast got their pitchforks ready.
Numbers are hard.
So
anyway.
So there's 2 plot lines going on in Avatar Day. And once again, the Zuko Iroh plot line kind of chills in the background, but it's still there. We're just reminded that Zuko and Iroh are in exile until the end, and then the major development comes on that front. But the one, like the big plot line is, of course, Aang showing up. He's like, oh my god, a festival in my honor? That's just the kind of positive reinforcement that I needed. Until it's not. But let's start at the beginning where they're camping out and they get raided.
Yeah. So we open with a daring escape, once again by Team Avatar, and an identity crisis. There's time to go back for Katara's scrolls. There's time to go back for Aang's staff. There is no time.
No. Nobody. Sokka's just over here like, I do everything for this club. And you guys don't even get my boomerang.
So true. But as the only non-bender of the group, that boomerang really is what he has. We've seen him fight with it. We've seen him already do some kind of crazy things with it.
It's his superpower.
It is. So,
and it just wasn't in the cards to go get it.
Just wasn't.
Yeah.
So they fly away. We come back to an Earth Nation area that we've been to before. Just across the bay from Kyoshi Island.
And these are very metropolitan figures. This is a city that's been, let's say, they've been hosting their own town halls and sock hops for a while now.
Large festivals.
And large festivals. And here we are on Avatar Day. The crew rolls up and they're so excited. They're like, oh my gosh, a festival in my honor. Oh wow, a depiction of me.
And those depictions are like a little bit weird, but very Trojan horsey.
Oh, I see you, yeah.
You think it's a symbol of honor. Little do they know that that Aang is about to be burned in effigy.
Yeah, not exactly the homecoming party that he had anticipated. And it's a coastal town. It's on the edge of a cliff, and everybody's just like standing around, like saying like no reason why, or no explaining why we live on the edge of a cliff, but we do, and we just accept it.
And we hate the Avatar.
These two things can't be related.
So, and you see, it only goes back as far as Kyoshi. So you have Kyoshi, and then Roku, and then Aang.
And that's in sequential order?
Yes.
Kyoshi, Aang. Okay.
So, what I really noticed about that scene is they ceremoniously light these things on fire, and then Katara's bravery just stuns me sometimes. I get that it's a cartoon, okay, but this is a street full of people who have angry, fire-burning energy towards the Avatar, and she just puts the fires out.
It's super effective.
She's passionate about defending the honor of her dear Aang.
Mm-hmm. I think she has a little crush.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So it turns out that this town believes that the Avatar, Kyoshi, murdered Chin the Great, their
Fake
great
news.
leader.
Well, sort of.
Not really. But Chin the Great was murdered by the Avatar. So forevermore, they shall hate the Avatar.
Yes.
In every life, every form.
Every single which way.
Do you think it's interesting that Aang hears this story and says, if I did that, then I gotta find out?
Right, because it shows you the extent of his memory of his past lives.
And how I think just the depth of connection between his lives.
And it also shows you that he kind of has like a nagging feeling that he didn't do that. So like the connection runs deep enough to be like, I don't think I did that.
Because the question is justice.
But I'll hear you out. Yes.
So Sokka needs a pick-me-up because he's lost his boomerang, and therefore when someone calls him ponytail guy, he's like, oh, I used to be boomerang guy.
Yeah. Well, what would he have done in a boomerang in that situation? Should he just adjust to life without a boomerang?
Well, instead, we're going to be a literal Sherlock Holmes for the day.
Yeah, he has to be detective guy. He has to have a thing. So he goes around and he investigates the temple. He sees that it was not made of the same stone as the statue.
Or it is made of... The temple is made of the same stone.
The temple is made of the same stone.
Which is impressive. Like, I don't really know how Sokka has the education to, like, be able to identify
that's not really
that.
Explained, but I'll give it to him. He's capable of a lot.
He is capable of a lot. And I think that's the point, is he is unconsciously showing off his other skills in the absence of his boomerang. We realize he really is capable of a lot.
So leg one of his investigation is done.
Done. Mm-hmm. We see the footprint also at the end of the cliff. That supposedly is Kyoshi's footprint where she killed Chin the Great.
Yeah, okay.
So they're not getting far.
No.
Aang is still in jail because the only money they have is waterbending money, and this town will not accept it.
He thought he could bail him out, yeah. He thought he could bail himself out, and he can't.
Non-transferable currency.
Yes. We don't take water money here. Excuse me, we don't take Cole's cash? We will settle for coal the cash. Anyway.
Earth Nation seal only.
Mm-hmm.
So Aang is in jail. He meets another bald man with tattoos. And, I mean, he's just being himself. Kantara and Sokka are off doing their best to find evidence.
He's making friends in jail.
And he's nice. Those people embraced him.
And they're lifting him up. And he's talking about his girl troubles. And they're reassuring him. Those people in jail, for who knows what, are giving him the strength he needs.
And even though they may look rough and tough, remember that Aang has been thrown in jail for a pretty silly reason. So it turns out there's every possibility that these kind gentlemen talking to Aang about his girl troubles and boosting his ego and confidence probably are in jail for silly reasons as well.
They're mad at the system, and so they're like, oh, well, the Avatar probably didn't do anything wrong. They probably make bracelets and T-shirts. Avatar did nothing wrong. They started a hashtag on X.
Ugh.
I don't know. Okay. So Aang's in jail.
Sokka and Katara take Appa across the bay to Kyoshi Island, where they've been before. Mm-hmm. It's where we met Suki.
Yeah.
And Suki and the other Kyoshi warriors are gone. I like that last episode, Sokka had all these conflicted feelings because of his vision of Yue. Which, if you remember, he met Suki and they had a little spark, but then we didn't see her for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He met Yue, and then his girlfriend literally turned into the moon. So
such a bummer when that happens.
Seriously. So they show up on Kyoshi Island, and Sokka's been quiet about it, but he's obviously excited to see Suki, and you can see on his face he's disappointed when she's not there.
Right, because his impact on her was so profound that she just has to go run off and fight a war.
Change the world.
Well, I guess if you're Sokka at that point, you take that as a compliment. Maybe.
I would think so. This is full of confidence boosters for Sokka, too.
Mm-hmm.
So
even without a boomerang.
They're told by someone they know from the island that story about Kyoshi murdering Chin the Great is bull hockey.
Mm-hmm.
How absurd. Why don't we go to her shrine? So they go to the shrine of Kyoshi and see what she used to wear. Her fans are on display, and her fans are known as her weapon of choice. If you've read the Kyoshi novels, it is how she channeled her earthbending. Kyoshi was plagued by only in the beginning of her earthbending learning being able to move very big portions of rock. She couldn't focus on pebbles. She could only move in huge amounts of earth. And so the fans spread and helped her channel that, which I think was a really cool way to explain.
Nice.
The psychology of earthbending. Anyway, they learn a little bit about Kyoshi, and one of those things is her boots are huge. The biggest feet of any avatar.
And can I just say, the tour guide is a little too happy about her big feet. He's like, it's like a point of pride for him. He's like, oh, but did you know she had huge freaking stompers? Like, okay, that's cool. It seems like it's very cool to you. Seems like it's
to really stomp those rocks.
Yeah. She's fun fact. Anyway, I thought that was funny.
So we don't see it, but it turns out Katara thinks, even though this tour guide also told them, please stop touching everything. Katara sees that stuff in that moment as Aang stuff because their lives are connected. So they take the boots and the clothing back so that when Aang goes on trial,
they have props.
They have props. Because this episode's all about props.
It's all about props, prop comedy. So now, our next step is to go and do this trial, right?
Yeah, and what are the rules?
The rules are the house always wins.
I say how it is. Mm-hmm. You get a chance to talk, but then I decide.
Which is a funny way to think of the justice system. It's funny.
Again, I think this team who made Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Mike and Bry, shout out,
provided some interesting doorways for children to consider tough concepts and question things without directly telling kids what to think.
Yes. Leading to pasture, not making them drink.
What is the justice system?
Right.
So, Aang is on trial. The story is Kyoshi killed our leader, Chin the Great. And that's
you basically
what happened.
can't argue with it. They present no evidence. They have no stuff. Crucially, they have no stuff in presenting this argument. And the wheel of punishment looms behind Aang as things look pretty bad. And then Aang tries to make his case, and he does... He should have hired a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm just saying that.
Look, he might be the Avatar.
I'm just going to say it.
But you're asking a 12-year-old to represent himself in a court of law?
Yeah, a little dodgy.
He might have all the evidence, but how do you tell people what you found?
He tries, and he fails. What comes out of his mouth makes no sense whatsoever.
None.
Uh-huh.
But then he dons the wardrobe of his former life. And Katara, what faith, is right. She thought, I don't know, but I thought this is the stuff Kyoshi used to wear. Maybe it'll spur something. She doesn't necessarily understand how the spirit world works, but she trusts that, like, this is connected to Aang's spirit somehow.
And it turned out to be quite connected. Because then Kyoshi awakens from the afterlife.
Which is so cool because do you remember the one and only time we've met Roku a couple of times, but there's one time that Roku manifested in the real world through Aang.
Yes.
So
at the fire temple?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
With the fire sages.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen Roku come through. Now we've seen a new avatar, the one before Roku, shine through.
And guess who was there to be a party pooper again? It was Fire Nation again. Every time Aang reincarnates, Fire Nation comes around and is like, I'm gonna beat you up.
Well, for Kyoshi though, Chin the Great was an earthbender and he was a conquering earthbender. So he was building armies and taking over great portions of the Earth Nation. This is, I think, culturally what I want you to pay attention to as we follow these characters through the Earth Nation.
In. Okay.
You've met King Boomy a few times now. He's the king of the Earth Nation. So now we're in this town, and Aang is on trial, and the system of justice is quite silly.
To say the least, yeah.
So I'm not sure at all how Boomy is connected to the governance in other Earth Nation lands. But clearly, this is their own kind of thing.
This is their own kind of thing. What do you mean?
The wheel of punishment is how we deal with our prisoners. So, Price is Right style, let's spin, or Wheel of Fortune style, let's spin the wheel. Oh no, it's boiled in oil.
Boiled in oil, which... Honestly, there were some other things on that wheel that were probably not great to land on either. But boiled in oil sounds ouchy. Sounds very ouchy. I
mean, like all the ways that you can be tortured or injured or killed, and
deep fat fried.
There's one space for community service. Please, please land on community service.
Right.
It speaks volumes.
Yeah, I see that as a commentary. And like you were saying, it doesn't lead somebody in a direction of how to think, how to respond to that. But it does kind of like shine light on the issue like, hey, sometimes in the grown-up world or, at yearly festivals where we celebrate, somebody at the Avatar's demise, sometimes justice is not always fair. Sometimes people are biased against the people who are trying to help them. That's what happens.
And sometimes folks are intimidated by those who are different from them. And Aang is the only airbender. And they have some beef with previous avatars. So they throw all that out the window as soon as there's
some beef. You say he has some beef. The town has some beef with previous avatars. They literally, every single year, they eat fried dough and burn them. And ceremoniously burn them, even the one that's still alive. That's some beef.
You think they're holding a grudge?
I think that might be the case.
Yeah. So, there's a hint of danger. Mm-hmm. The same group of Fire Nation folks who attacked Team Avatar at the beginning of the episode come to conquer a city that has been under siege before. And what do you know? As soon as there is a threat that they don't know how to defend against, who do they call for?
The Avatar. Oh, look. Was having you bail us out again on your wheel of punishment? Kind of. Because then they, flip it to community service and whatever. It's like, community service, now go! Serve your community! I thought that was a very funny line.
And it is a funny line. And it's significant.
Even funnier to me is now Aang, in Kyoshi makeup, has to slay. And Aang does slay. Aang does serve. Aang is giving in the full Kyoshi getup. I thought that was funny.
Well, yeah, because we've seen Sokka in the Kyoshi makeup. Mm-hmm. We know that it stands for the Kyoshi warriors. It is a symbol of strength. So Aang, after manifesting Kyoshi...
But he just doesn't look like Aang at all. He's just like,
no.
I am Kyoshi.
Where's his arrow? Mm-hmm. But this, I think, is important to that message that came from the swamp all the way through this episode is everything is connected. So we learn everything is connected to everything. Yeah. And then Aang thinks about his past lives that he's connected to. Then he defends this city that's been so spurned by Kyoshi in Kyoshi's own garb with her fans.
Gets them to think about Kyoshi differently.
Yeah. And so restores the reputation of the Avatar.
And gives them a new kind of food to eat at the yearly festival. And it's just like Aang, because Aang has not yet been cooked by hot oil. And so they eat the raw Aangs as their food. They say, from now on, it will be raw Aangs.
He's not fully formed. He's not yet baked.
He's not fully formed. Yeah, he's not yet deep fat fried.
Now, before we wrap up, there's one more thing we have to talk about in this episode.
Okay.
Did your question about who the person in the blue mask is get answered?
Is it Kyoshi?
Did you really not notice?
No. What was I supposed to notice?
Did you miss the person that you know that took off the mask and put it away and then dined quite elegantly, extravagantly with their uncle who asked, where'd you get all this stuff?
It was Zuko?
It's Zuko.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did notice. I didn't like put two and two together.
There's a lot of sleuthing going on in this episode. It was kind of overshadowed with Sokka's.
I was just thinking about how that raw dough tasted. But yeah. So Zuko, he is coming off a little bit like a Robin Hood figure. He can sneak in, take from people who have plenty, except he's technically giving it to the poor, but he's keeping it for himself. Right. Myself is the poor, then. Yeah. That's Zuko?
That's Zuko.
That trips me out, man.
And Iroh clearly knows.
So what are his motivations? Because it seems like he's fighting the intentions of the blue mask guy at various points, especially before he's exiled.
Well,
so what's the point?
I think Zuko, at first, I think in the last episode, you think that he's being angsty, whiny. He wants the comforts of his own life. But in this episode, you see him put on the blue mask and take not just food, but what he takes, both money and utensils, like a teapot.
The teapot, yeah.
He takes that money and he spends it on providing things that I think, feels his uncle deserves.
Oh, cute.
He sees this as, we are royalty, yes, but my uncle is a great general.
And he loves his tea.
And he just loves his tea. And this man isn't even eating. He's performing on the street for mean people so that they can have a piece of bread. And he's like, no, I'm going to go take and provide him with the things that he deserves.
So ironically, now Zuko is working to provide balance in some way.
And Iroh tries to reason with him and counsel him without calling him out like, kid, you're stealing.
Right.
Where is this stuff coming from? But that's where the crux of this issue is. Zuko doesn't feel he has honor. He's used to
trying to work to get it back.
He's used to the comforts that his idea of honor provides him.
Yeah.
But the truth is, his pain is coming from now, and not only is he exiled, but the weight of his mission to capture and bring back the Avatar, he sees as his absolute only hope of ever having his life back.
Gotcha. It's almost like he's not... It's almost like with his banishment, he's no longer in support of the imperialist Fire Nation ethos. He thinks the four nations can once again live in harmony.
I think you have made an excellent prediction about Zuko's character.
Listen to that. She complimented me.
Oh.
She said I made an excellent prediction.
Am I not praising enough?
No, honey, I'm not saying that.
Well,
I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm going to ride high on that one for a while.
You're a real Sokka. Good sleuthing.
Now give me my boomerang back.
Oh, what do you know? It always comes back.
Aww. Yeah. Well, I just feel like I got my boomerang back. I think I speak for the entire podcast when I say that I got my boomerang back. We got our boomerang back. And for things, speaking of things that always come back, we will be back.
Next time with the episode that is long awaited, The Blind Bandit. I'm not going to say anything
How good
except...
of a bandit can it be if it's blind?
I can't even say anything. We're just going to wait. Be prepared, AJ,
Okay.
for the series to change from the next episode.
You're hyping
forward.
this up.
I am hyping it up.
Well, we'll see if it lives up to the hype. Next time on Atla Shrugged, the Avatar, The Last Airbender podcast. Signing off, I'm AJ.
I'm Kaylee.
Thanks for listening.